In this video, you will learn how to add Spring Security to a fresh Spring Boot application step by step. Adding Spring Security to Spring Boot has a surprising and an interesting effect. You will learn what this effect is, and you'll also understand why that's happening. Alright, here's our starting point. It's a simple Spring Boot application with just the web dependency, and I've added a simple API that you can use to test. Let me show you what I've got here. So this is my Spring Boot application, open in IntelliJ. If you look at the pom.xml, there is just the web dependency and of course the test dependency. Here is the main application class with the main method that you would expect from a Spring Boot app. And here is this resource that I've added. So it's called home resource. It just has a home method, which is mapped to the root URL, and it just responds a simple welcome text in an h1 tag. Now, if I were to start the server and open localhost 8080 in a browser, you should see the welcome message that controller returns. All right, so this is mapped to the root URL. So accessing the root URL is going to show me that welcome message. All right, so now how do I add Spring Security to this kind of a web application project? The way to add Spring Security to a Spring Boot project is by using a dependency called Spring Boot Starter Security. Just like with a whole lot of Spring Boot dependencies, this is a starter pack. It is a Maven dependency which pulls in all the necessary Spring Security dependencies and makes them available for you, so you don't have to hunt down individual dependencies. You can do that, of course, but this is the best and the most recommended way. So all you need to do is go to your pom.xml, and I'm going to stick this dependency here after the starter web. Now I've got Spring Boot Starter Security dependency. Now, most of the Spring Boot dependencies, most of the Spring Boot Starter dependencies don't typically have an effect just by adding it to the class path. You also have to have some kind of configuration that goes with it in order to tell Spring Boot, hey, I have this dependency, take it and use it and do something with it. However, with Spring Security, you have something different. All you need to do is add this to the class path and Spring Security immediately starts working. What does it do? Well, let me show you. Now, if I were to start this application again with just the dependency added and no configuration done, and if I were to access the same root URL, notice what happens. There is a sign-in form. We didn't add this thing in here. How did this get here? And what do you even use to sign in? I can try something, let's say test and test. It doesn't work. It's even doing validation. It has a proper sign-in endpoint. It's checking to see if your credentials are valid. And in my case, where I've entered random values, it tells that they are bad credentials and it doesn't let me sign in. What's happening here? Well, let me tell you. So you remember the picture in some of my previous videos where I talk about Spring Security being this watchman or security guard in front of your application, which is basically intercepting all the requests and making sure that the person who is making the request is the right person who is allowed to be making those requests. This is kind of what Spring Security is doing. Just by adding Spring Security dependencies to the class path, it's kind of sit in front and it's stopping you from accessing the application. How does this happen? How does Spring Security do this? Just by adding something to the class path, how can Spring Security intercept and kind of take over the whole application like this? Well, the answer is using something called filters. If you're not familiar, filters are a very basic concept with servlet applications, and Spring Boot and Spring Security and all of these Java web applications are servlet applications after all. Spoiler alert. So you have basic servlets, basic servlet technology working underneath to provide all this kind of rich functionality. And you have all these frameworks built on top of it so that you don't have to deal with the servlet layer. But what's actually doing all the job are those servlet technologies. And filters are one of the core concepts associated with servlet technologies. Now, how does it work? Think of a web app, and you have a bunch of servlets here, which are basically what do the work when a user makes a request, right? So a user makes a request to a URL, and then there is a particular servlet that does the functionality and provides a response for that particular request. And the way it works is, depending on the URL, the right servlet is picked, right? The servlet container looks at the URL and says, okay, this URL needs to be handled by this servlet. This URL needs to be handled by this servlet. And then it picks the right servlet that needs to do the job, and then it executes a method on that servlet. This is how servlets work. But think of filters as kind of like cross-cutting concerns. Filters kind of stand right in the middle and they intercept every request. And this gives you an opportunity to do something with every request. You can kind of think of it as cross-cutting pieces of functionality that you can use to log every request, for example, or check every request to see a particular header is there or not, stuff like that. So while servlets are mapped to URLs, filters can be applied to all URLs. You can put a filter in there and say, okay, this filter needs to intercept all URLs. And then you have that filter allow or deny based on the request itself. Well, guess what? Spring Security is doing exactly that. Spring Security is just putting in a filter there and saying, okay, now I'm going to sit here and examine all requests to allow or deny requests as per what I should be doing. There are a bunch of things that Spring Security does by default. First of all, it adds mandatory authentication for all URLs. Let's say you have a Spring Boot application with a bunch of URLs. You throw Spring Security in there. By default, without any configuration, it makes sure that authentication is required for all those URLs. When I say all, there are a few things that it does skip authentication for. For example, the error page. Spring Boot applications come with a /error by default. Well, Spring Security does not secure that because you don't typically need authentication to show error messages. But in general, it adds authentication mandatory for all your APIs. That's the first thing that it does. Second, it adds a login form. We've seen that. There is a /login route, which brings up the login form. It adds that controller to your application. Next, it handles any login errors. It has this authentication logic where it examines your user ID and password, and then it validates and makes sure that that's correct. If it's not correct, it shows a login message, which we've just seen. But now you might be thinking, hey, hang on. What is a correct user ID and password? Because we haven't done anything. It just added Spring Security. Where is it getting its user ID and password from? Well, Spring Security is saying, okay, now somebody has added me to the class path. I make things mandatory authentication by default, but turns out this developer has not given me a user ID and password to authenticate against. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create my own user ID and my own password, which is exactly what Spring Security does. So this is the fourth thing that Spring Security does when you add it to the class path. So it's created a user ID and password, and that's the reason why it's showing up a login form for us and it's not allowing us to enter. But now how do I figure out what that user ID and password is? Well, if you look at the console log over here, you see this? It says using generated security password. So this is the password that it has generated. And by convention, Spring Security creates a user called user. So this is the user ID and password that Spring Security creates by default for our Spring Boot application just by adding that dependency. So I'm going to copy this password, go back to the form, enter the username user and this password, and click sign in. Well, there you go. We are in. So this is the default behavior of Spring Security. And just by adding Spring Security to the class path, we have achieved this functionality. You can, of course, customize this automatically created user though. So what you can do is go to your application.properties and you can add a couple of properties in here. So the first property is Spring Security user.name, and then make it foo, and then again you can do Spring Security user password. I'm gonna set that as foo as well. All right, so now you're basically telling Spring Security, hey, create the user with this name and this password. That one default user that you're gonna create with this username and with this password. So when you start this application now, Spring Security thinks, oh, good. Now I want to do the default behavior of having authentication, but I don't have to create my own user. Here is this one user that this developer has given for me. So it's going to create that user instead of the default user. Now, if you were to start the application, look at the logs in the console, you will not see that created user with generated password message anymore, right? It doesn't do that because it doesn't need to. It's just going to use your user ID and password that you entered in your application of properties. Now, if you were to open the same URL and enter that username and password, foo and foo, we are in again. So this is how you add Spring Security to your Spring Boot application. Now with the application property values, what we've managed to do is to override the default user that Spring Security created. But we obviously want more. We want Spring Security to refer to some kind of a list of users that we have in our system. In order to do that, we need to configure the authentication mechanism in Spring Security. Click this video to learn how exactly to configure and override authentication in Spring Security. I'll see you there.